Alright, it's Coachee and I'll be analyzing your response to replay number 1 quiz. It's a quiz of team fighting between two silver gold teams, so let's just get right into it. Alright, so during this onset over here, what you may notice is that on the minimap we see a Cassiopeia in the bot lane as this engage starts. Now, you can see that this person over here, Iron Man playing Ahri, could just pick the closest targets to him, because obviously Braum is not much more of a priority over a Skarner, right? They're both kind of tanks. You'd say Braum's even worse than Skarner. At least if you have Skarner charmed and Braum in the background, Braum, doesn't have too many tools to really screw you up there when there's no damage dealers nearby. But Skarner might pull you in deep enough for the Tristana on the right side here, just entering the camera in 1 second now, to catch up and fight with these three folks on the red team. Right, so you had a really good sandwich or a really good collapse, I should say. And now it's a little bit less strong, but it's still a 5 versus 4 for 4 seconds straight. Cassiopeia still hasn't teleported, is seconds late at this point, should be teleporting. You really want to time that in your head on an ability. Let's say I look at mid lane and like, if this person ults, or if this person flashes, I'm going. Right, you want to have that instant reaction, right? You don't want that to be another 3 seconds behind by that time the fight is over. Fights only last a couple seconds where it's interesting. After a certain amount of time in the fight, either side has won, and it's going to be really hard for one person to make a change. So here we see Cyan pulling the trigger and engaging, which is really good. But now look at what's happened in the backline. So we have a really good 5-man collapse, right? Iron Man is going for it, Cyan is going for it right now, or is a little bit delayed. Again, that few seconds delay makes all the difference. But he's relatively fast, and look at what happens in the backline. Look in particular what happens to this player over here. He's over here, participating in the fight, you'd say, has the option to kite into the open space here and just start dropping auto attacks on everyone. And look at this. Gets hit, doesn't dodge anything, but still walks backwards. So now you end space the most horrible way possible, and you get hit by everything anyway. He could be auto-attacking, 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 auto-attack, 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 auto-attack. You get the general gist of it, right? He should be auto-attacking this entire fight, and he would be completely fine. Here as well, he staggers an autos once, pulls back again. See, he's afraid of dying. He's playing for his own KDA, right? He hasn't died once, and all he cares about is not dying. He's also playing like there is no Tahm Kench in this game. And Tahm Kench here strays away. So there's just no coordination you can see here at all in this fight. But you have to remember what happened at the onset of this. At the onset, we could see a potential 5 versus 3. With Ahri starting a collapse on the Skarner potentially. And just absolutely starting to mollywhack everyone as the sign comes in. And the Cassiopeia has to spend 4.5 seconds on this patch, TPing in, 4 seconds more recently. So could this fight be won by the blue team? No, unless everyone trolls. I would very heavily disagree with that. Very, very heavily disagree with that. Let's also take a look at the summary. I have given this test to 11 people of different skill levels. Some of them are high master, and there's a myself is in there, right? So I'm looking at scouting grounds, and one team's already in scouting grounds. Another team is looking to get into EU Masters and will likely fail, right? Have plenty of coaching experience besides that. Diamond player. You got I think master player in there. You got a EU Masters coach. A couple of Coachees, silver gold level. And some of the players actually on this team of silver gold level. So you got a very nice mix of people. But they all unanimously voted, wait a second, everyone should have just committed. That was the main point of this team fight that you should take away, is the hesitation by the Jinx and the Olaf primarily. Like, the mechanics of the Ahri and the way they set up that engage is not good, but look at this hesitation. Look at how Tahm Kench is in front, of Jinx instead of behind to eat her up when needed. Look at Olaf here, not ulting, walking back and forth, back, forwards, back, left, right, back, not doing anything, right? Doesn't do anything during this entire duration. My mouse isn't captured, but you can see where he is, right? So, alright. That was the main point why I recorded this clip, is because it demonstrates a theme, the theme of hesitation, pulling the trigger. Alright, where should Jinx be in relation to his team? Alright. She should be stepping up because she has a Tahm Kench. But the fact that she's so low and they have almost no CC at all, Ahri trolled. Ahri starts an engage setup in a 5 versus 3. And she walks up too close. She should just be charming, right? She shouldn't be walking up with 2 ult charges like this. But it's complete waste for Skarner to pull someone in right now because they can't turn the fight anyway. There's no damage dealers here. Look at this. Look at what happens to a 3-second suppress. This Ahri's barely being chunked out. Look at this. She's almost full HP right now, right? And now they don't have a Skarner ult, and they were still 5 versus 4 for this entire fight. But nobody pulls the trigger here. So the Cyan engage is left, turned into a 1v4 essentially. That's where everything goes to shit. So she can step up, and she should definitely be going into the open space where she can, for example, trade with the Karma instead of just land, like Karma landing all her hits, max range. Alright, where should Jinx be in relation to the terrain? Her positioning is alright. Look at this fight. Look at where Karma... Think about the interaction between skill shots, linear skill shots, and the terrain. If you are close to a wall, then you can aim a skill shot as far up from the wall in such a way that you can't dodge it by going down, because that would land you into the wall. That means you can aim some ability above someone, and they have to go all the way through the entire area in order to dodge it. So let me show you what I mean. Let's say this is a wall, right? And you have a skill shot with, let's say, it has a width, of course, right? So let's say your skill shot, you have a champion over here. That means that you can aim the skill shot like this, barely hitting that person on the top, because there's no way that he can go towards the bottom. So now he has to essentially go all the way through this entire hitbox, all the way over here. This is all the distance that he has to cover now. While of course, if you did this in a normal situation where you have spacing tools, you can just make a tiny little step down and you're already out of it, right? So it's absolutely crucial that you stay away from walls against these linear skill shots. It's an absolutely crucial mechanic of the game, which is why these open spaces are so important, and why choke points like this are so important to control. And the blue team has to take any chance they can get to try and walk through the choke point into the open space. That is your goal here, to get control over the open space. She should be just autoing the closest target, and while doing so, her auto range is a certain range, and she wants to go towards the center. So what's going to happen is you see these little arcs, right? And sometimes you can also kite into someone if you're safe anyway, right? So you don't have to make a little arc like that. But that's why you see high level AD carries so often walking in these little arcs. They want to go to some place, but they also want to keep autoing someone else. That's how you get there. So her positioning is absolutely atrocious. And that is one of the primary reasons why she got so low, and why, like, even after she got low, she could still just auto attack, just done her job. She's not doing her job this team fight. Even if she dies for it, she should still do her job. Otherwise, she lose from the onset from a 4 versus 5 if these people are committed. You unconditionally lose if people don't commit. This is team play, right? That's organized play. Alright, so what was Olaf's biggest mistake? Wait. Where should Jinx be in relation to the enemy team? Alright, this is part 2. We're going to answer the question where she should be in relation to the enemy team. And your answer was she should have been killed by the Cassiopeia. Now the ground does not hit her. She gets hit once and just goes into the brush where they have no vision. And there's closer targets to hit. So I wouldn't agree that she should have died. But the point was that she should just be kiting to the nearest target and just keep DPSing. Essentially, she should be in the open space, trading blows with Karma, or just attacking the closest target. Right? She shouldn't be 2 flash ranges behind on people. And she can essentially always stay in front of Time Catch. What was Olaf's biggest mistake this fight? Shouldn't have even thought of fighting after Ori trolled. If the rest of his team dies, they can no longer think of contesting Baron, then the game's over. Damage control. If in organized play someone makes a call to go in, even if it's debatable, you do go in. Like, you will never succeed as a team, both in terms of results, performance, and even more importantly, perhaps, like team atmosphere. If there's no level of trust at all, right, then yeah, the team will not thrive. So absolutely, all 5 should be collapsing instantly, and it is a 5 versus 3, right? It is a 5 versus 3 with a hyper carry with with her 3 items completed. Completely able to just dish out damage just as well as Tristana, but Tristana isn't in the fight yet. These 3 people are not only being outnumbered, but they have no damage sources. They're not really a unit that can function well. So for 5 seconds, they are heavily outnumbered against essentially a decent team, like in terms of scaling. Like if you don't look at the Olaf build. Some people think they're playing in the LCS or something with these wacky builds, but that's not really the point. Point is, heavily outnumbered, focus 1 person, easy peasy. Skarner blows an ultimate without any damage dealers nearby. That ultimate is absolutely huge, right? Ari still did her entire combo, didn't really achieve much because she just didn't really get to nuke anyone squishy. So both teams blow abilities here, blow high value ults, but the Skarner ult is higher value, and they were already at a heavy disadvantage. That's a big deal. These people should now be walking in here, Cyan should collapse, and these guys are just dead. It's 5 versus 3, with the hyper carry just pounding out auto attacks all the time. And an Olaf, like, sitting on your face with ult. So this fight should be over before Cassiopeia and Tristana can regroup with their team and just 5 versus 5 it. Especially since now they're already down ults. 2 ults. 2 big team fighting ults. I can't stress that enough. That is absolutely huge. Let's see what other people talked about. So, most people have picked up on the fact that he walked back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. See, even if you wanted to play damage control, you would have to call everyone out, which I think would be a huge blunder. But that's not the point. If you do that and you make that call, you can still make it work. You can make either of the calls work in a scenario, no matter which one is better or worse. The point is, Olaf did put himself in a position of fighting, but didn't fight. And that is the biggest blunder of all that you can make. Is essentially not committing after you've committed. That is just internal inconsistency. That makes you completely unreliable. Alright. Yeah, the hesitation, an unclear signal of going in and retreat, like instead of just picking one of the 2. At least you have an opinion, and if I were playing with you on a team, I might say like, I might be like, hey, I don't agree with you at all, but you are very clear in your opinion, and I can work with that as a player, right? That is at least a very, very important fundamental to get right. What was the biggest reason for blue team to lose the fight? Okay, I saw this one. I saw a few here. So most of the answers are indeed Jinx not DPSing at all, and Olaf never doing anything. And then I saw something about the team comp. The team comp, if you think about it, the team composition is fine. Like, the team composition was drafted by an EU Masters coach, and, you know, like someone coaching for national teams. Like, we had an extreme abundance of resources to draft with. Like, I mean, like, resources in terms of the people drafting. For a silver team, that would be completely unheard of. And if you look at it, the combination, it's essentially you have Jinx and Tahm Kench with a frontliner like Sion and two folks in between that look for picks. The duo of Ahri and Olaf are a little bit more designed to make picks, and essentially they can also function as a buffer between the Sion and the backline. And that is an absolutely fine composition. If you look at the enemy team, you have Skarner, which is pick, and then you have Utility Mage, designed to speed people up. And then you have a Braum, which is more disengage oriented. So they don't really have as clear of a concept. They don't have disengage orientation. Right? We have essentially a pick oriented comp that can protect the backline, right? It doesn't put a very, very heavy emphasis on that. But it's consistent. You know, there's no champion that falls out of that box very heavily. And the enemy team doesn't really have that internal consistency within their comp. So that I don't think that's something anyone spotted so far. And I don't really think that is the major point here. Whether they track the Cassiopeia teleport is one question. The question is, would they win the fight if they all commit before the Cassiopeia TP finishes channeling? That is a really big deal. Braum ultimate, Cassio W, and ultimate, Karma ultimate. The ultimates, they're not overpowered champions, so their ultimates don't really make or define a composition. It's the synergies between like what champions are good at, right, and the ways of playing around your weaknesses that would make you have a good composition or not. And I don't really see how that's a problem. Like, especially in big open spaces, a pick comp like with Skarner is doing worse than, let's say, a party of rundown champions like Sion, Olaf, and Ahri. They have more options to extend fights with. That is a big discrepancy between two teams. And if you look at it, the red team, if you look at Karma, for example, when these guys blow both of their ultimates, Karma is completely exposed. Like, we could just 4-man this and just burst in here with a Sion coming from this side, right? She would be completely sandwiched. So they don't have that many outs, especially when they waste their ultimates when there are no damage dealers to actually kill the person that they're trying to pick off. So they essentially failed the entire point of their comp here in this fight. And still won because there's zero commitment, right? So the comp I can readily verify as someone who drafts for, national teams and who was drafting with someone who drafts for national teams, that this composition is absolutely fine. That is not, there's no inherent, Braum is not an overpowered champion. Cassiopeia is not an overpowered champion, compared to, let's say, a Sion, right? The Sion engage with Olaf running people down. That is not inherently worse or weaker you know, these are fine picks. Like in this meta, these. All right, so to round things up, what would be your advice to Jinx? So avoid fights and choke points, especially versus team comps with abilities that are insanely good in choke points. Buy some magic resist or lifesteal. A hyper carry with a Tam Kench hitting his 3-item power spike does not want to slow it down, and lifesteal doesn't do much if, let's say, if Skarner does land an ultimate, or they do get to pick someone off, then lifesteal doesn't. Essentially, lifesteal is designed for damage over time. While right now you're in a team fight where the point is to essentially use the frontliners to soak up damage for you. You're not essentially. Jinx should not be trading blows, right? It might happen with a Karma, but why is that Karma allowed to step up? Especially given that they're just a 3-man over here, right? So you would never want to delay the biggest power spike in the game. Not against this team comp when you have a Tam Kench, so nobody can get onto the Jinx, right? In terms of pick potential, in terms of hard to see, right? So you would never want to delay your power spike. That's not really the point here. The point is the positioning. If you look at this, walking backwards for no reason, not committing, then walking around for a second, healing for no reason, doing absolutely nothing with the heal, not standing in redemption range, not kiting towards the center of river, not dishing out auto attacks on the closest target if there's no special tactics available to go for a better target than that, dishing out absolutely monstrous damage because she has that 3-item power spike and she has that protection from the Tam, and they already burned the ultimates for no reason when they had no damage dealers. You can see that is a real problem here. Just 2 huge damage dealers not being able to crush through a team that just used the majority of their pick potential. So the main point here was hesitation and micro, right? So avoid walls, stay near peelers like Sion, avoid hugging backline divers like Ahri and Olaf, right? Pump out autos all throughout the fights. Even if you risk making a micro error, it's better to screw up and learn about cooldowns or enemy combos rather than not following up a game-deciding engage. Track cooldowns, right? To identify whether you can kite someone. Walk backwards without kiting, but take full damage from the Karma anyway. We saw that, right? Walking backwards even after she gets hit by everything, right? Not even mentioning a few micro errors like not getting into redemption, right? All right. So the main thing that I want you to look at is these 3 people and where the other person is. The other person is like way over here right now, and the other person has to take 4 seconds, so that would, or 4.5. So that would be the equivalent of them being somewhere over here, right? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're there. And all the meanwhile, you can kite around where they're going, right? On the TP. So they got 0 damage, or a little bit, right? She already used her empowered Q, and 0 damage, right? And you got the Tam Kench Jinx bot lane. You got the 2 backline divers, which, you know, they have a little bit of capacity to tank. They don't need anything more against these guys that deal almost no damage. They have very good synergy between these 2 champions and these 2 champions and massive damage, right? So they want to be collapsing on that, and Sion obviously can cut them off from this direction and collapse on these guys. And then Tristana will be forced to try an auto attack and then see if she can match the Jinx DPS. But as you can see, even though Tristana has a little bit more gold, Jinx also has that 3-item power spike. Otherwise this fight would be much harder. But she was, if you look at what the autos do towards the end, you can look at how she's absolutely nuking through the backline there. It takes a while. It's only towards the end of the fight that she starts landing a few autos. Look at that. 322, 322. That's 600 damage done with one auto attack. That's my point. Alright, so look at those individual distances. Look at how the units of champions that are in the fight function with each other. Like, do they need a damage? How many damage dealers do they have? They have 2 damage dealers on the team. Cassio and Jinx, both are not present. Well, that makes you a very, very, very weak unit, right? That's what you want to be looking at. And then you get into positioning, right? You get into how the abilities are used. What is a pick ability for? Well, it is for a damage dealer to kill someone. If Ari survives the Skarner ult, then the Skarner ult was a blunder, right? If they also throw a Brown ult on top of that, and still nothing happens, no damage is dealt, now they're down 2 ults, that's an absolute blunder. So you gotta contextualize these abilities with what they're for, right? CC synergizes with damage, and damage synergizes with CC, right? You gotta have both in order to have a good functioning squad. So when you know what those squads, what they make, how they function, essentially, what defines a good squad to fight with, and then you take into account individual distances and whether someone's temporarily outnumbered, then you get at this fight, and you get all the things we talked about. They all make sense, hopefully. Hopefully. Alright, that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.